Hello everybody, Raspberry Barrel here, and today we'll be reading another biography of Mewni. And we'll be reading one of my biographies of one of my queens today, but we are not getting on to Destiny quite yet. I had one more biography I wanted to do before we get to her, which is Athena Butterfly, who, if you remember, is the sister of Plutoa Butterfly. And sorry for the lack of video last time, and for the Gravity Falls video not happening last week either. My computer deleted some things, and I've also been really busy, and so sorry for the wait. Here we are now. And now the beginning of the story is one you've heard several times now, I suppose, from Solus and Plutoa, but we're going to tell it one more time, but from another perspective. I hope you guys will enjoy this biography. And please go check out my DeviantArt to see the rest of my queens and stuff. And if you're really wanting to see more Destiny, go to my DeviantArt and see all the Destiny art and stuff. So let's just get started. Please forgive me if I stutter, hesitate, or mispronounce anything, and for any noises in the background. Let's begin. From a wicked womb, this glorious princess was born. She will lead us all so greatly, and the past shall be forsworn. Athena Butterfly, the Glorious, and the years without a queen. Born 1090 a.m., died 1148 a.m. Was queen 1090 a.m. through 1103 a.m. Married to Adam Woodwell. Children Iris Butterfly and Calliope Butterfly. Athena Butterfly would be born on Oweg 7th, 1090, being the second born of Queen Solus, but the true firstborn of King Eric Shruven. Athena was born in resemblance to her father, with pink five-petaled flowers with leaves on her cheeks. Athena was just a child and would have no idea how her birth would exacerbate the stress and period of problems for the butterfly family. Athena's birth brought back the king's worries and mistrust in the queen, and about his first daughter, Plutoa. He wanted to believe his wife, but needed to talk to someone, and so spoke to his family. His mother, Lady Denise Shruven, current head of the Mewni House of Justice, felt differently than the rest of the family. She would end up going and getting a DNA sample from Plutoa and have proof that she wasn't Eric's daughter. Lady Shruven brought the issue to her family and then the royal council. After a lot of debate, they decided to leave the queen be until Athena was done breastfeeding. Then they would take action. Though the council was unable to come to a clear decision on what was to be done, they agreed to dwell on it and to come to a decision later. But Lady Shruven had already made up her mind and wouldn't let it go any differently. Athena lived happily with her family. Solus was stressed. Eric later knew the truth and tried to stay quiet and calm, later just trying to avoid the queen so as to not make a mistake. But Plutoa just stared and happily played with her new baby sister. The horrible day finally came, when Solus put Athena to bed, kissing her on the head. Eric then asked Solus and Plutoa to see something before bed. This would be the last time Athena would see them for many years. They were led to the dungeon and locked up, where they were met by Lady Shruven and some of the council, who told them that they knew. While this huge mess was beginning in the dungeon, baby Athena laid happily in her bed. Lady Shruven would then gather the people and told them that Queen Solus was not in power anymore, and that she and her son had full control. Lady Shruven then began pronouncing that Solus was evil and had done treason, and the Princess Plutoa as well. The people and some of the council were confused, but were told they'd later get answers. Lady Shruven then went on to proclaim their fates had been set, and went on to tell that she had decided. When Lady Shruven walked back into the castle, she would be met with a confused council and MHC. They had not all agreed on this. She told them that they had agreed that she and her son would be in charge. She was the head of justice, and justice was all she was doing. Some stood beside her thinking of Solus when she was younger, and that she wasn't worthy to be queen. Others said they had time to reach a better resolution. The meeting was adjourned, and Hecapoo went to Solus to make a plan. 2 days passed, and Lady Shruven seemed to get many on her side, but through unright methods. Hecate was instructed to banish Plutoa early. She went to do so, but instead started her and Solus's plan. It was that night that Solus's escape began. She first went to kiss sleeping Athena goodnight and left her wand and book under her cradle. She then fled the castle and would never be found. Eric and Lady Shruven had the guards search for Solus after discovering she had escaped, but after a month decided there was no longer any use. They told the people she was dead and that a new period had begun. They were then presented with Athena, who was announced with the title of the Glorious, and that she was their new heir and would be crowned once she was old and mature enough. Many just decided to accept this and continue on, but not everyone would surrender, specifically Solus's old friend Nura Miltree, who knew her friend was innocent. During Athena's childhood, her father and grandmother were her main role models. The king liked to pamper Athena and throw her parties. It helped him distract himself from the past. Athena was raised thinking she was an only child, and that her mother wasn't the best person and died in childbirth. On Athena's 3rd birthday, it was decided that Athena would receive the wand at 12, and then be crowned queen as soon as she seemed ready. After this announcement to the kingdom, Lady Shruven worked very hard with Athena to prepare her to be a good ruler. In 1095, Athena would be sitting in her room playing with dolls when she heard a huge crash sound from outside the castle. She looked out the window to see a weird butterfly monster flying above the garden, and a hole in the castle wall. Athena was small, but she was also brave. She ran to her father, who was handling the issue. He told her to stay back and watch, and that this was a monster they knew how to deal with. And they just had to get it back, chained up, and not let it get outside the walls and cause harm. Athena watched her father and the knights battle and tackle the beast. Athena decided she didn't want to stand and wait. She ran up the stairs with a rope and waited by a tower window for the beast to be near, and jumped out on top of it, roping it by its neck. When everyone saw the princess on top of the monster high up in the sky, they panicked. The butterfly monster was now falling due to the rope around its neck, but Athena held on and used the rope to guide and glide the monster back to the ground where the knights could get chains on it. Everyone was overjoyed the princess was safe. King Eric hugged her and said he'd make sure to bring her next time they needed help with the beast. He then decided that she was ready for the next part of her training, and so allowed her to have personal sword lessons with him, and that she could receive the Book of Spells early and learn of her ancestors. Athena was so happy to get the book, she ran up to her room and opened it. She went through the pages hoping to find her mother, but her chapter was blocked off. She would then ask her father and grandmother to tell her about her, even if it was bad. For the next few years, Athena's life remained the same. She learned with her grandmother, trained with her father, had many balls, etc. Life was nice for Athena, but she did have some issues. She barely ever got to leave the castle, so she didn't know her people well, or really her kingdom. She also had a hard time with friends at parties and such. They all seemed afraid to interact, like something bad might happen. Athena was contemptuous of what she had, though, and told herself that it was all due to her status and the past of her family. In 1100, tragedy struck for Athena, though. She went to greet her father for breakfast and found him dead on the floor. Athena ran to her grandmother, who said she knew, and not to go back in there. Athena sat by herself at the table in shock at what had happened. It would then be announced to the kingdom that King Eric had died, and that the cause was stroke. The kingdom mourned his death, but Athena couldn't get the thought out of her mind that there was more to it. She was sure she saw blood. Athena now felt the need to mature with her father's death. She left the castle by herself, sometimes unannounced. She looked for answers around the villages and would feel confident that her father was assassinated. But some of the information she found made it sound like it was because of her mother, and that her mother had not died giving birth. Athena would speak to her maids and then grandmother about this, and Lady Shruven decided to tell Athena the truth. Well, some of it. She told Athena that yes, her mother did not die in childbirth. She was an evil woman and was sentenced to death shortly after Athena's birth. She went on to say that there had been small rebellions from the people, the ones who for some reason thought that her mother wasn't evil, and that yes, they did attack her father. Athena left the room, frustrated that the truth was withheld from her. With the death of her father, Athena took over some of his duties, one of which was now being in charge of the beast. It would break out again in 1101, but got past the castle gates and into the village. It kept squirting goo at people and tried to pick a couple up. Athena wasn't at her best due to thinking of her father, but she was able to get a hold of the chains attached to the beast and guide it back to the ground near the castle where the guards dealt with it. Athena's 12th birthday arrived in 1102, and she was finally given the royal wand. It took basic wand form, but with the tiara at the top, dragonfly-like wings, and the crystal shaped like a pink flower. Athena had been reviewing the spellbook already for many years and thinking of which spells she would make, but she proved to not be very good at first. At the end of her 12th birthday ball, Lady Shruvan pronounced that Athena would be crowned in 1 year, after spending time training with the wand. Immediately after her party concluded, banners were erected for her next birthday and the festival for her coronation. Athena's wand. In the beginning of 1103, there would be rumors of someone going around villages and asking about the previous queen. It didn't seem cause for any alarm until in Samaranor, someone came and said she had seen someone who resembled the lost princess, and she was building an army. Athena was taken aback by this, and went to her grandmother and ministers to discuss. Athena told her grandmother that she thought they weren't lying anymore, and that she had told her the whole story. Lady Shruvan said she thought Plutoa was dead, and that Plutoa was her evil older sister, who was banished alongside her mother. Despite how many times her grandmother had lied to her, Athena believed her and began preparing for battle. Athena made sure the armies were ready. She warned the people, and she tried to practice her magic, which she wasn't very far on. On Darturk 28th, the kingdom could hear the footsteps of the enemy's army. Athena spoke to her people, saying hopefully they could just talk first, find a non-violent solution. Lady Shruvan then told Athena to stand guard at the throne room, and they'd do what they could. She then told the bridge keeper to ignore Athena's commands and not let the enemies in, not even to talk. Details about the battle are detailed in Plutoa's bio, and so I won't be retelling them here. But while that was happening outside, Athena anxiously waited at the throne, hoping for the best, thinking of what she'd do if they refused. Lots of time would pass between when the battle began and when it reached the castle. Athena was still scared, but told herself to remain calm, and she meditated. Time continued to pass until eventually a guard ran in with Lady Shruvan and told her they had broken down the wall and now the castle gate, and for her to prepare. Athena started getting anxious once again, and minutes later she heard the screams of her grandmother down the hall and felt a wave of shock come down her. She had no idea what she was going to do. She stood up and held her wand firmly, aiming it, waiting, hoping to be ready for her evil sister to come around the corner. Plutoa entered the throne room. Athena was immediately taken aback by her glowing red eyes. They then went on to have their confrontation that is detailed in Plutoa's bio. While fighting with her sister, Athena was horrified and wished she could understand her. Those things she was saying about saving the kingdom, what did she mean? Once Plutoa knocked her wand away, she held her by the neck. Athena broke down and finally asked, "Why?" Athena, in tears, asked why she was here. Hadn't her evil mother and her done enough? She was taught her whole life that they were bad. Why was Plutoa denying it? Plutoa yelled at her then that she was a child when it happened. What evil could she have done? And that she was also taught what horrible people her grandmother and father were. What they tried to do to them. My mom might have made some mistakes, but she didn't deserve some horrible fate. You people are horrible, and probably would have killed me if Mom hadn't escaped and saved me. Athena felt a stop in her heart. Escaped? She might be alive? Athena was stuck on these words, but Plutoa continued her speech. Athena began crying to herself that she really was lied to her whole life, that her mother was alive, that for some reason she was happy that she was alive and wanted to see her, that she was about to die by the hands of her sister, never knowing the real truth. Plutoa then stopped and lowered Athena down, and told her that none of this was her fault either, and that it was clear she had been lied to as well. You don't deserve a punishment for what your guardians did. You had no say in it, and it appears you do care about the kingdom. May we please speak with one another? And so they spoke. Athena still very shaken with fear. They heard one another's point of view and the truth. Plutoa feared Athena wouldn't believe her, but Athena did and apologized for their troubled past. She then knelt down bowing and said, "I surrender. The kingdom is yours." Plutoa was shocked and asked her not to bow. She stood her sister up, thanked her, and added that they would be doing things together from now on. They then exited the castle together, calling the battle off. They next went to thank their soldiers and help the wounded. Athena was devastated when she saw her grandmother, but tried to hide her feelings from Plutoa, who may have lied to her, but she was still basically Athena's mother figure. After showing Plutoa's followers a place to stay, the sisters walked through the throne room where they had battled only some hours ago. Plutoa would be brushing some rubble off the throne, and Athena looked at her smiling and asked if she wanted to sit. Athena looked at her sister sitting there, happy things were getting better, but deep inside, she was still scared. After issuing the plans to repair and aid the people, and exposing the truth about Plutoa and Solus to everyone, Athena and Plutoa had a discussion on what they should do next. They decided that a festival would be thrown in honor of the truth, and to give everyone some upbeat spirit. Athena was looking forward to this positive spirit, for despite growing closer and trusting her sister, she still had nightmares about their battle. Plutoa would then accompany her followers back to their village, and Athena was thankful for the day to breathe and mourn her grandmother. She gathered her remains and buried them with her father. She then spent the rest of the day figuring out what her grandmother had been doing to her people all these years. On Spartak 42nd, the throne room had just finished repairs, and the sisters were talking about how they might decorate, when suddenly they heard someone open the door. They turned around to see who it was. Athena stared frighteningly. The figure then pulled their hood down, and it was revealed to be their mother, smiling at them in tears. Athena couldn't believe it, and neither did Plutoa. They both ran down to see their mother and hugged her, making sure she was real. The repair of the city was almost complete, and Plutoa decided to thank everyone and present them with the return of her mother, Queen Solus. The people gasped, as Athena had expected. Although they had now been told the truth, they were still accepting it, and couldn't get rid of their preconceptions of Solus or Plutoa as evil. Solus spoke, saying she apologized for all that had happened, and she was happy to see the kingdom was safe. The family then officially announced the festival that would be held, honoring the end of war, confusion, and the return of their princess and queen. The last major reveal before the festival was on Spartak 48th, when a maid asked them to follow her upstairs, that there was a situation. They all followed her, and Athena began to wonder and worry as they approached the room holding the beast. The door to the chamber suddenly opened, and a woman came out. Athena was shocked, and then looked closer and realized she recognized the woman. It was her grandmother, Queen Stella. Solus was in tears, so happy to see her mother, who was tired and confused, and Athena stood there, trying to stay calm and appear happy, but inside she was horrified at what was revealed. The situation was then explained to former Queen Stella, who was sad, but was quickly cheered up when Solus introduced her to her granddaughters. Stella wasn't in the best health though, so their meeting was brief and she was rushed to the medics. The festival came on Spartak 50th and lasted 3 days. The first 2 days went wonderfully. Athena was happy, but at the same time confused, and also guilty feeling. She tried to hide and ignore her thoughts and enjoy her time. Sadly, at the end of the second day, they would find Stella dead in her room. Her body had been through too much pressure during puberty, and so when she finally left it, her body shut down. The last day of the festival was dedicated and in honor of Queen Stella, celebrating her life, mourning her death, and burying her in the crypts of Butterfly Castle. Athena and Plutoa would spend the next week hanging out together with their mother and comforting her through her pain. Solus looked at her daughters and thanked them, telling them she was so proud of them. That night, Athena was awoken by a noise and decided to go to the washroom. She then saw her mother cloaked and exiting Plutoa's room quietly. Athena asked her mother what was happening. Solus apologized and told her she had something she had to attend to, and she didn't belong there. Athena understood and watched her mother exit the castle. She'd never see her again. The next day, Athena rose early, preparing to attend to Plutoa when she realized what happened. She would hear the screams and sobs of her sister later, meaning she knew. Athena was also upset, but focused her time on confronting Plutoa, who was her only family now. Athena felt it was a good chance to show Plutoa some of the things she had been missing out on, and that night she introduced Plutoa to the Mewni TV. August 7th came, Athena's 13th birthday, the day she was supposed to be crowned queen. The celebration she had been preparing for a year was cancelled and was all put into Plutoa's coronation. Athena had a good birthday with her sister, but it was sad being almost alone, and it was her first birthday without having a ball. Athena was happy, but still felt down that the day she had been preparing for wasn't ever going to come. Plutoa's coronation would take place the next day, and Athena handed over the book of spells and wand to her sister. While Plutoa fascinated over the book and wand, Athena and I talked. I gave her more of the answers she was looking for, and she told me I wasn't very helpful to her, and that I better go over to Plutoa and guide her. So I took a week break and then I appeared. Athena realized Plutoa wasn't used to royal life, so tried to help how she could to comfort Plutoa and be there for her. Athena tried to be there while she was still adjusting, but couldn't always. While Plutoa tried to get to know the kingdom and do some things herself, Athena worked to undo what had been done during the years without a queen. In her search, she began to break down and would write, "There really isn't anything glorious about me. All I was a figurehead, a shiny object to look at, while all these people suffered." Athena could tell her sister had a lot on her mind, so told Plutoa to talk about it, and it was okay. They decided to go on a walk together in the garden, and Athena continued to push at her to open up. She eventually had enough and started yelling at her. Athena wasn't ready for her sister to blow up, and was drawn back, especially when she saw her sister's red eyes. She began flashing back to that traumatic battle when she first met her sister. Plutoa saw the fear in her sister's eyes and tried to calm and stop herself, but she couldn't stop. She knelt down and screamed up into the sky, and red light shot out of her. Athena watched in fear, having no idea what was going on. After a few minutes it stopped, and Plutoa fell unconscious on the ground. Athena had no idea what had happened and didn't know what to do. Athena called the guards and the medic, and they brought Plutoa to her room, and Athena sat by her side. Plutoa awoke a few hours later and apologized for hiding her feelings and yelling at her. Plutoa and Athena would then spend the rest of the night discussing their feelings. After giving the wand to Plutoa, Athena didn't do magic herself. She tried, but was mostly unsuccessful. After giving the wand to Plutoa, Athena didn't do much magic herself. She tried, but was mostly unsuccessful. She had fun spending time with Plutoa as she practiced magic, though. Plutoa would eventually enter puberty, and Athena was scared. Being raised by Lady Shruven, Athena didn't have access to all butterfly information, and was never taught about puberty. Athena felt especially worried as she watched and had flashbacks to when she was dealing with the beast. Plutoa would successfully pass through, and then to Athena's surprise, she would also go through puberty, now being slightly better at doing magic. For all of Athena's life, she was sheltered and didn't get to meet new people, so in 1105, once Plutoa seemed to have a hang of the kingdom, Athena started traveling the kingdom like she had always dreamed. Plutoa accompanied Athena on some of her trips, but not many. Athena was saddened to not spend time with her sister, but in her mind she knew she was still scared and was happy to get away from Plutoa. Athena made sure to stay in contact though, and she loved sending Plutoa pictures of the places she visited. Later that year, Athena would cross the Delphinday Bay and travel to the Epidaurus kingdom. Athena fell in love with its fashion and culture. Athena had her stay there and then continued down her list, but would continually come back again between trips home and other places. On one of her trips back in 1106, Athena would meet Adam Woodwell while looking at an art exhibit. The two spent the rest of the day together, and Adam invited Athena to call him over next time she was in town. Athena still didn't have many friends, so she treasured the relationship she had with Adam and continued visiting him in order to see him and keep that relationship in check. It didn't take long, though, until the two got a little too close. Athena confessed she had some feelings for him, and he returned them, and so the two announced themselves dating. Adam would then start accompanying Athena on her trips, and she took many pictures of them together and sent them to Plutoa. After saying goodbye to Adam and returning home to see her sister, she was surprised to not find Plutoa anywhere in the castle at first. Athena knew not to worry, but was hoping for a welcome home or at least a hello. She then walked into Plutoa's room and saw Berylyn sleeping in her bed with her. Athena screamed in surprise and ran down the hall, waking up Plutoa, who then chased her down the hall. Plutoa tried to explain to Athena, but she just shook her head up and down and said she needed to do some royal paperwork alone. The sisters would then later talk about it at dinner. Plutoa then announced Berylyn and her engagement to Athena. Athena knew her sister was having trouble making friends, nonetheless boyfriends, but she didn't expect her to get with her adoptive brother. Plutoa continued to explain it, and there was nothing wrong with it. They loved each other, and she didn't think she'd ever find someone better to be her groom. Athena still felt awkward, but understood, and said she supported her sister. After months of preparing, Plutoa and Berylyn were married on Zamaron 8th, 1107. A month later, Athena would go on a trip to give her sister and husband some time alone, and she went to see Adam. Adam took her on a special tour of the Kingdom Gardens, and then, at the Rainbow Waterfall, he proposed to her. Athena said yes, and then it was her turn to have a fun sister wedding preparing time. In 1108, on Gravnock 26, Princess Athena and Adam Woodwell were wed. Athena had her sister as her maid of honor, and had a splendid after-party ball. Athena and Adam immediately got close to one another, now that they were wed, and Athena announced her pregnancy 2 weeks later. Plutoa also became pregnant soon after her, and Athena was happy it was an experience they got to do together. Athena and Adam would say hello to their little princess on Torak 6th, 1108. They named her Iris, and she had light blonde hair, teal eyes, and blue birds on her cheeks. Athena was overjoyed to have given birth and become a mother. She was going to be there every step, and be the mother she always wanted. Athena was very sore and tired after her pregnancy, but made sure to be there for her sister when she gave birth to her heiress in 1109. After the two had time to relax and refresh, they had a celebration in honor of their new daughters. In 1112, a battle led by Jagi Kingdom occurred, which can be found in more detail in Plutoa's bio. Athena was hurt when they were ambushed, and spent the rest of the battle healing, afraid, and hugging her daughter. When Plutoa had ended the battle and stopped the bomb, Athena was thankful everything was okay, but was saddened when she heard that Plutoa had sacrificed the spire of their citizens to do so. After the damages from the battle were cleaned up and repaired, Athena decided to get pregnant with her second child. Her daughter Calliope would be born in 1113, having dark blonde hair and golden quills on her cheeks. Plutoa and Athena loved watching their daughters play with one another and seeing the nice family they had. In 1115, Athena and her family decided to move or take a long vacation to Epidaurus. Plutoa was sad to see her sister leave the palace, but Athena reminded her they would still talk and she wouldn't be that far away. Athena thought it was good to make sure Plutoa had space and could function without her, and she was looking forward to her own alone time with her family. One of the main reasons Athena wanted to move was to enroll her children at the Epidaurus schools and arts, and not have to send them away. Athena and Adam were both happy to see that early on their daughters enjoyed what Epidaurus had to offer. In 1118, Plutoa's adoptive mother would pass, and Athena returned home to comfort her sister, who desperately needed it. Athena tried to help and support her sister, but it seemed like no use. She could tell that her sister was once again repressing her emotions, so she once again told her sister she should open up. Plutoa didn't take her advice though, and once they thought Plutoa started whispering things in her breath, Athena and Berylyn sent Destiny to Epidaurus for the time being. This was the start of the downfall of Queen Plutoa. Not many records exist of what really happened, but Plutoa wouldn't get any better, and Athena, not wanting to document anything negative, wrote, "She seemed to be returning to a rude and entitled state." After this point, Athena and Plutoa were ruling together, and the whole family was helping run the kingdom. Adam and Athena still technically lived in Epidaurus, but Athena now spent lots of her time at Butterfly Castle. Time passed, and Plutoa seemed to display symptoms less frequently, and felt more approachable to people, including her daughter. Athena was happy to see things somewhat better, but she knew that when no one was watching, her sister went back to her ways. She had simply learned to act, something Athena loved, but she didn't want her sister to lie, pretend, and hide. After Plutoa passed the wand of destiny in 1123, Athena didn't see her niece all that often, and could see that destiny being around less also affected her mother, and Athena prayed for the best. Plutoa did get more angry after this, but Athena was overjoyed when Destiny confronted her mother and said she was going to help her. Athena was very proud at everything Destiny was able to do, and the whole family got together soon after and had a fun time bonding and spending time together. With proof that Destiny would be able to calm Plutoa down, and that Berylyn was also there to supervise, Athena moved back to Epidaurus, feeling relieved she could go back to taking it easy with her family. Athena got to spend a lot more time helping her daughters now. She loved seeing Iris perform in drama, and the star in Calliope's eyes when she recited poetry. Iris would leave for an art school in 1124, and would return home 2 years later with a man by her side and told her mom she was pregnant. Athena and Adam spent their time preparing their 17-year-old daughter for motherhood, and got her and her boyfriend Nick Nellstone married right away. Athena's first granddaughter was born in 1126, a sweet baby girl named Amy. After passing the throne to Destiny in 1128, Plutoa and Berylyn came to visit, and Athena's family put on a big performance welcoming them. But Iris couldn't do much due to being pregnant with her second child. Athena was happy to also have some peaceful quiet time with her sister again, like when they first met. Athena and her family would attend Queen Destiny's wedding in 1131, and then be there to help her with her pregnancy and birth in 1132. Destiny asked Iris lots of questions about pregnancy and motherhood, especially since Iris had just had her third child that year. Calliope loved baby Neptune, and Athena and Iris were getting a lot of questions about motherhood from her, due to her getting married later that year. Destiny and Calliope were both pregnant later that year, and after the birth of Destiny's twins and Calliope's daughter, Andromeda, in 1133, the family all moved into the castle again temporarily, and it was full of babies. After Destiny's fourth child in 1135, all the girls and their husbands were sure they could handle the kids, so Athena, Plutoa, and their husbands all got to start going on trips together again. Athena felt wonderful getting out with her sister again and visiting some of their favorite places. In 1143, Athena attended the 40th anniversary party to the sisters reuniting. Athena was very happy to be traveling back to the Butterfly Kingdom and to see her sister, who she had not seen in quite a while. In fact, Plutoa actually hadn't been seen by anyone in a long time, and so this was a special event due to her coming out from the dark. The celebration was wonderful, and Athena and Plutoa spent the end of the night reminiscing with one another. Plutoa actually made a couple jokes about this weird thing that had been talking to her in her head since she was young, and Athena laughed awkwardly, and then asked her what she was talking about. Plutoa seemed pretty out of it, and said she needed some rest and to call it a night. Athena hugged her sister and said goodnight, but was frustrated to not have gotten an answer, and had a hard time not thinking about what her sister had said. Athena awoke the next morning, early, and would be waiting for Plutoa to wake up. Adam and Berylyn asked if she was all right, and she just said she had something she really needed to talk to Plutoa about, but yes, she was fine. After enough time had passed and Plutoa still hadn't awoken, Athena went to her room to check on her, horrified to find her sister's body on the floor. Athena screamed for help, and it was announced that Plutoa was dead and had been murdered by poison. An investigation was made to find Plutoa's killer right away. Eventually they found the culprit, a soldier from the Jaggi battles, wanting revenge for the death of his family. Athena apologized to the man for what had happened to his family, but said it didn't make up for him murdering her sister, and he was sentenced to life in the dungeon. All of this was a traumatic mess for Athena and the whole family, but Athena was also upset that she never got her answer. While Plutoa's funeral was arranged, Athena spoke to Destiny and Berylin about the issue and was surprised at what had been happening those last few years. Plutoa would be buried in the crypts of Butterfly Castle on Spartak 42nd. At the burial, Athena said Plutoa was probably happy to die, being relieved and released from this world of pain and guilt. Berylin would die a year later, and Athena's family would be there to comfort Destiny. Athena always tried to be there for her family and carry a smile, but she had to be honest to herself that she was also upset. Things got worse when Adam died in 1147, and Athena went into a small depression that would have evolved if it weren't for her family. Athena Butterfly would then pass on Thurk 63rd, 1149, being buried in the butterfly crypts with the rest of her ancestors, reuniting with her sister in death, where they could eternally smile with one another. Athena and Adam at the Rainbow Waterfall. And that was the biography of Athena the Glorious and the Years Without a Queen. I hope you all enjoyed this biography, and I welcome any questions in the comments. There are definitely lots of things implied in the story that aren't outright said, so if you want to ask, I'll answer. So thank you all for listening. Please go check out my DeviantArt for more. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I am working on Destiny, but still gonna take a while, so no promises for anytime soon. And on February 8th, I will be attempting to do a live stream on my Twitch for my birthday, and I invite you all to come. Link should be in the description. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Raspberry Barrel, signing out.